The week after I gave birth to my infant, my 6-year-old son started telling me about a lady he saw in the bathroom. He described her as looking almost like me, but not quite. She had long black hair, pale skin, and was tall. Sometimes she even wore the same outfit. He would see the lady from the corner of his eyes, but the lady would disappear when he turned to look at her. Other times, he felt her presence while he was in the shower or walked by the bathroom. We just thought this was his way of getting attention because of the new baby. One night while he was using the upstairs bathroom, he heard footsteps come up to the bathroom door. Someone knocked on the door gently twice and he asked who it was. There was no reply. A minute later, he heard the knocking again. Still no response when he asked. He was starting to get annoyed, so he finished his business in the bathroom and flushed the toilet. As he was about to wash his hands, he heard footsteps again. Without thinking, he said, "Leave me alone. This isn't funny." Suddenly, someone pounded angrily at the door, startling him. He was petrified and stared at the door. He waited until the pounding stopped and ran out of the bathroom screaming. He quickly ran downstairs and found all of us in the family room. I remember he looked so scared. My husband rushed to pick my son up and my son started crying. After calming down, he told us what happened. We didn't hear anything during that time and no one went upstairs. My son continued to experience unexplained whispers, shadows, and began having night terrors. There would be nights where he would be screaming and running out of his room. When my husband caught up to him, he would become limp as if he was still sleeping. The stress of a new baby and my son started taking a toll on my mental health. I started to forget birthdays and appointments. I would forget where I put my phone and the baby pacifiers. I thought it was just the postpartum blues and tried to keep myself afloat mentally. One morning, I noticed my son didn't come to breakfast. I went to his room and saw an empty bed. I panicked and yelled for my husband. He came out of our bedroom and asked what happened. "Mickey is gone," I said. We searched the house and backyard. My daughter rode her bike around the block to see if she could find him. I was about to call the police when we heard a thump from my room above us. My husband and I rushed upstairs and looked in our room. We searched our walk-in closet. There was my son, sound asleep in the corner underneath the extra blankets. He didn't remember how he got there. Scared, I turned to our family members. My mother offered to keep him at her place for a while to see if things would settle down. I just wanted to get him out of our home and somewhere safer. I didn't want to say it, but I truly believed something followed me home from the hospital. About 2 weeks passed, and my husband had returned to work. My son was doing well at my mother's house, and there were no further incidents for him. I felt relieved that maybe things were going to get better. However, my oldest daughter started mentioning the same thing and began to fear being alone. She felt as if she was being watched in her room by herself. She started complaining about someone tugging on her toes when she slept. One night, she felt a presence in her room. It was creepy enough to wake her up in the middle of the night. She felt a cold hand grab her leg and pull her. She screamed and kicked. Running out of her room, she saw a shadow figure at the end of the hall, and the lights would not turn on. By the time my husband and I heard her screaming, she had barged in and jumped in bed with us. This didn't happen every night, but would happen about once or twice a week. Sometimes it would even grab at her hands or toes. Sometimes she would find her phone or hairbrush in odd places. Eventually, she became too scared to sleep in our home, and so we brought her to live with my mother too. That day, I came back to a house that was empty and cold. I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't alone. As I was packing clothing, I felt someone walk up to my bedroom door. With my back to the door, I thought it was my husband. "Did you find the large diaper bag?" I asked. No reply. I looked back and there was no one. I heard my husband's phone ring and he started talking on the phone downstairs. At this point, I was already spooked. I continued packing when I heard a voice from my doorway. "Mama," it said. I froze. It was the voice of a little girl. I turned around to find no one at the door. I ran down the stairs and told my husband I was leaving now. He looked puzzled and hung up the phone. We both hightailed out of there and spent the next few nights at my mom's home. Against our wishes, my mother spoke with a friend from church about our situation. Her friend told the pastor and he called us. I was hesitant to open up about it at first, but eventually told him the whole story. The next week, the pastor and some of my mother's church members came to bless our home. Things quieted down for a few days, but we would still hear whispers and a little girl's voice. Even during the day, we would be startled suddenly by the chilling voices. My husband decided to ask his side of the family for help. We turned to his uncle for help. His uncle was a shaman. His uncle came to do a spiritual cleansing ceremony. He told us something had followed us home from the hospital. He became very assertive when asking that thing to leave us alone. His uncle seemed to chase an invisible being from room to room, spitting liquor from his mouth onto a plate of heated coal and herbs, creating a breath of fire. It felt like I was watching a dark circus performance. To my surprise, the heaviness in the air lifted. After that, we didn't experience any more paranormal activity in our home.
Subscribe if you like to listen to scary stories.